Order. Thank you. My name is Garney Baker. I'll be the acting chair today, and please direct your questions through me to the board. And our board members are, starting on my left,
Florian Youngen,
Darlene Paranack,
Jeff Hillstead.
and I'd also ask our civic employees to also address the crowd here, or the...
Jolene Noel, recording secretary.
Jane Dean, permit clerk.
Lauren Miller, Manager of Planning and Development with the town.
Robin Denonge, Communications Manager.
Thank you very much. So, first thing I need to ask is, have we had any changes to the agenda at all?
No, we did not.
Okay. And I'd like to get a motion then to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
All in favor? Carried? Okay. And with that, let's see if I can make this work. We should move right along. So, at our last meeting, we had DP 2019-021 on the table, and we, I forget the term, what did we do? We postponed it until today because there were some concerns regarding some things that the town needed to take into consideration regarding future levies upon the land. Have these things been taken care of to the satisfaction of the development board?
Yes, they have. Everything's been addressed in the staff report and in the Schedule A and the development agreement.
Okay. Does anybody on this board feel that they needed a reiteration of this presentation to help them make their decision?
I just have a question. So are the levies now calculated on the entirety of the parcel, or has there been an agreement put in place for the portion that's going to be developed?
Correct. So I'll just flip you through. I have a quick presentation which speaks to that. So essentially, we're keeping on the same track that we had proposed, and we just spoke to our legal counsel, and we tightened up the wording so that the offsite levies, which we are collecting, are only for the portion of the lands which are being developed. And then we've also included this this diagram within the Schedule A, which clearly shows where the development offsites have been collected and where they're to be collected in the future. So, with these conditions in place and the revisions from our legal counsel, we are situated now in a position where we are in legal standing to actually collect future offsite levies once a development or a subdivision is proposed.
Thanks.
Yep. Very good, Marcus. Any other questions? Do you feel we need to, do you have one?
Well, just to confirm, I think that staff's recommendation is to approve a project.
Yes. That is correct. Are you prepared to do that, or do we need to go into any kind of a private discussion on it? Okay. I call a motion then. All in favor? Carried.
Great. Thank you.
Moving right along, we now have DP 2019-128, 1000 Spring Creek Drive. Mixed-use development, commercial and tourist home, variances to maximum building height, minimum requirements for parking stalls, setback variations, open block space, and a number of loading zones. The applicant is Spring Creek Mountain Village. And Nathan, you have a wonderful presentation for this.
You've just covered half my presentation right there, Mr. Chairman. So I'll not repeat what you've already stated, but my name is Nathan Gravel. I'm a development planner. and I'll be presenting Tamarack Lodge, DP 2019-128. So I'll just begin with where the site is located. It's located in Spring Creek. Those unfamiliar with Spring Creek, it's a residential area with support commercials south of Main Street, west of Bow Valley Trail, and framed by Spring Creek as well as Policeman's Creek. So the blue box up on the screen shows exactly where in Spring Creek the subject site is. It's actually in the heart of Spring Creek. Spring Creek likes to say it's the heart of Canmore, so it's somewhat
It's the
appropriate.
heart within the heart.
That's right. So a bit of site context for you. The subject site is a brownfield site previously used as part of the mobile home park. The mobile homes have been removed from the site in preparation for future development. Adjacent to the site are a variety of uses and elements such as seniors housing, origin at Spring Creek to the north, townhomes to the northeast. There's future municipal reserve and townhomes to the east as well as Policeman's Creek. Apartments to the west, you can see those labeled up there as White Spruce Lodge, as well as Creekstone Mountain Lodge, and Jack Pine Lodge is under construction, and mobile homes to the south. The subject site is within and governed by the Spring Creek Mountain Village Area Redevelopment Plan. The ARP envisions this site next to the future plaza as the commercial focal point of the village, and the development complies with this vision and the requirements of the ARP. So what's proposed, as mentioned in the introduction there's a mix of residential and commercial, so there's 80 tourist home units, as well as one retail food store at grade next to the plaza, one eating establishment also next to the plaza, and one office. With regards to the proposed form of the development, there's two buildings. One at 3.5 stories, one at 2.5 stories, separated by an interior courtyard with parking accommodated through parkade as well as on-street. Does it comply with the bylaw? You were already told it did not, and it requires the following variances. Variance to maximum building height, minimum number of required parking stalls, built to line setbacks, commercial parking stall width, open block space, and number of loading zones. Does it exceed the bylaw? It does exceed the bylaw in the following areas. It provides geothermal heating. The applicant is committed to achieving certified built green level gold, as well as achieving a minimum of 16% better than the 2015 NECB requirements, and finally providing 40 more bicycle stalls than required. This is reflected in the applicant's sustainability screening report. They scored 37, which suggests that the development will have a positive impact on the community. So looking at the variances, the first variance is to building height. The development requires up to a 3.2 meter height variance in Zone A and up to a 2.8 meter height variance in Zone B. You can see this up on the slide. The colored areas represent the areas of encroachment or variances. The size of the height variance is influenced by the parkade, which is raised up for flood protection and groundwater protection, so that actually pushes the building higher to begin with, as well as the site grades. So you'll see, it might be not as apparent, but in the bottom right, the visual, you can see how the grading slopes down as you move from Spring Creek Drive to the creek. So it changes, there's over a meter in decrease. So that also adds to the height variance, and you can kind of see that reflected again on that graphic showing the roof areas that encroach. How you move towards the back, there's sort of more encroachment represented by the darker colors. That said, the district does allow for the development authority to grant variances to the roof heights within these zones when the architectural integrity of the building would be enhanced. The allowable variances are in height zone A and B, 20% of the building may exceed the maximum height by 10%, and 5% of the building may exceed the maximum height by up to 20%. The building is within these variance allowances. Administration believes that the architectural integrity of the building is enhanced through the overall design of the roof. For example, it has a working roof which you can see here. So it's not cut off at the top, it continues up and down. This is considered to be a better form of architecture because it has that natural look to it rather than sort of being cut off like you would see in other projects. Say Origin at Spring Creek, which you'll see a little later, has a cut-off roof. Canadian Tire, Super 8, these developments. So that's correct. There's opportunities for that as well. So in addition, overall, the way the roof is designed with the height variances, you'll notice that it does step down towards the plaza. And this is viewed as a benefit for the users of the plaza in that it provides more access to light and views, etc. Spring Creek could have up to 4.5 stories all along the plaza and the street, Spring Creek Drive going north as well. So, moving along to the second variance, a variance to the built-to line setbacks. So the district requires that the building have some facade articulation. Specifically, it's required to have 40 to 75% of the main floor block frontage within 1.5 meters of the property line, as well as a minimum of 25% of the building shall be between 1.5 meters and 3 meters. So this idea again of having the building close to the street and then pushing back in certain areas to allow for some articulation and interest in the building. The portion of the north building facing Spring Creek Drive is proposed to be 2.39 meters from the property line, and the portion of the south building, which faces the future plaza, is proposed to have a majority of the building up to 5.3 meters from the property line. So both don't have any frontage within the required 1.5 meter built-to line. The placement of the buildings is really due to the applicant's desire to maintain the architectural style of the building, which the applicant believes would not be enhanced through articulating the building. Furthermore, they've chosen to, with the south building, take some of the interior courtyard space and sort of put that theoretically in the front. So they've pushed the building back, which limits the amount of space for the courtyard, and they have that space in the front. So that trade-off, again, is sort of viewed as a positive for the plaza. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. But in the opinion of administration, the buildings are architecturally pleasing. There's a variety of design elements such as landscaping at grade, balconies on each story that create the appropriate mass and scale of the project for the site. Looking at the third variance, to open block space. So the district requires that 25% of the site be contiguous, well-programmed, and landscaped open block space. So you can see an example up on the screen on the left of sort of what that's trying to achieve. So you don't have a building sort of all around the site. You have an open area, if you will, that's got some landscaping. In this case, the shape of the site is a little bit different. It's not a square, and given that there's a public plaza, the applicant wanted to take advantage of that a little bit more and saw less of a need for an interior plaza space that's not really going to receive a lot of light, and to put that sort of on the front of the building where people who live in this building are likely going to go to enjoy, which is the plaza. So administration saw that as an acceptable trade-off for this variance. Moving on to the fourth variance, a variance to the minimum parking requirements. So the development requires 149 parking stalls. 139 parking stalls have been provided. The shortage of 10 stalls is for the residential units. In order to meet the visitor and commercial parking requirements, the applicant is choosing to allocate only one stall to the 29 one-bedroom tourist home units. The bylaw sort of factors in a 1.5 stall for each unit calculation. So they're not giving as much parking to the one-bedroom units. They're allocating that more to the commercial side of things. And we are supportive of this variance because the applicant is unable to accommodate further parking stalls in either the parkade or on the street adjacent to the site. So the alternative is that they just shrink the development. In this case, given that it's supposed to be the focal point of Spring Creek with a lot of commercial development, there's not as much sense to maybe reducing the commercial side of things there. There are parking stalls along Spring Creek Drive to the north, and in the future there'll be parking stalls in the south that could serve as overflow parking. You'll see that here on the conceptual plan. So you do see south of the site some available street parking, and there won't be much commercial development in the south either, so much of that will be free in the front. And in addition, the applicant already has a tourist home building in the village, and they've been observing the parking habits, and they found that they have an oversupply of parking because most guests who are coming to stay at the tourist home arrive in one vehicle instead of two, so there's some flexibility there. Looking at the fifth variance to the required number of loading zones, so the development is required to have 2 loading zones, but only 1 is proposed. Administration supports the variance because a dual-purpose short-term parking zone is proposed in the front. So actually, I should just show you where they are. So you have a loading space right here in the back that'll serve the commercial needs, and then there is a dual-purpose one here. So it's a loading stall, but it also could be used as a parking stall. It's a more efficient use, I guess. And how that works is there's just it's a signed parking stall. So it says maximum 30 minutes, essentially. So there's opportunities to park or to load. The commercial area results in a 1.49 loading stall requirement for the development. The bylaw typically requires that you round up in all cases when you're doing your parking requirements. So technically they're sort of on the cusp. Common math would say if you're going to round, you would round down, but the bylaw says you round up. So the 1 plus a flex stall, I guess, is more representative of what their actual requirement is before you round it. And finally, there are potential for early morning and evening coordinated drop-offs, so they could certainly use what they have efficiently. And finally, there's just a minor variance to parking stall width for the commercial stalls. The bylaw says that commercial parking stalls should be 2.6 meters in width. They've kept it consistent in the parkade with a 2.51 meter width. So residential, it's 2.5. Commercial, it's 2.6. What's the difference? Well, some would say that there's just a little bit of extra buffer built in because you're not familiar with a commercial parking stall when you approach it, and sort of a new experience, if you will. So they sort of built in a little extra space. But arguably, 2.5 is functional because that's what we require for residential stalls, which everyone is familiar with. They've parked in 100 times, so hence it's a little bit more narrow. So administration doesn't see any issue with the proposed variance. Looking at the submitted comments, notice of application was posted on site. We received 2 phone calls about the project. One member of the public wanted more information about the development. They didn't provide a position, whether they were in opposition or supportive of the project. The other member of the public just had some concerns about how the height may impact their unit at origin. What does administration recommend? We recommend that you approve DP 2019-128, given that it is in alignment with the ARP and that it offers a community benefit as evident by their SSR score. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions you may have.
I guess I have more of a comment, and I think I would agree with the points that you made about architectural expression, roof shape, and setback articulation. And I think we can contrast with a project that we saw just previous to this one, which had basically 50% flat roof and a bunch of gables tacked on, sort of, I guess, to address the architectural guidelines in Canmore. And I think it's important to point out that snowy mountain climate really calls for more simple roof forms rather than these really, you know, abundance of gables. And I think Councillor Hillstead probably knows that better than anyone else. So yeah, I would just agree that it's nice to see clean roofs, simple forms, and when I look at the rendering there, I don't feel like it's any less appropriate to a mountain town than, you know, the project, again, contrasting to the previous one which has gone to sort of more lengths to kind of dress up and try to appear to be mountain in a bit more of a convoluted way. And so my next comment is, I think what's actually much more important to discuss here, in the light of the fact that Canmore Town Council just recently declared climate emergency, is that this development has taken some significant steps to reduce energy consumption, and I think that we really have to encourage that, because we see a lot of projects come through that sort of play lip service to that, and when we see someone making a substantial effort, I think that's to be taken into account, you know, in balance with variances that they're requesting. So I just would like to say that that environmental piece is really important, and it's good to see a project propose forward-thinking measures.
Nathan, do you know in the new land use bylaw, the proposed land use bylaw, if the parking requirements change for the one-bedroom tourist homes?
I will defer to Ms. Miller for that question.
Through you, Mr. Chair. At second reading, Council did amend what was proposed at second reading for visitor accommodation. So the minimum required parking stall requirement is now 1 stall. It was originally proposed to be 0.8 stalls, but we've also set a maximum, which was 1 at proposal prior to it being changed to the minimum being 1. So we have tried to make some strides in addressing parking, but we've also amped up our bicycle parking requirements as well.
Right, okay. And sorry, you had said visitor accommodation, but this is a tourist home, so are the parking requirements the same?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they'd be considered the same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the other question I had was, with the other tourist home property that Spring Creek owns, are the stall widths the same as what's being proposed here?
Good question for the applicant. I'm not aware of what the widths are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any issues with the 2.5, considering just that it's a residential, like same use as somebody pulling into the garage for their home, so just curious. Thank you.
And I really have no questions either, Nathan. It's very well presented. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Kernick, would you like to address the panel?
Just briefly, and just to be able to answer any questions, I guess, more than anything. This is part of our village square. This is we always say the heart of Canmore Spring Creek is, but this really is in the heart of Spring Creek as well. And it is a unique development. We went to a different architect than we normally use because we wanted to make sure it brought a different, unique flavor to it. And really the integration into it in the village square, we feel that those boundaries have to be seamless, that it really feels this is part of the community. And the commercial aspect is important to that. You know, build out, we're going to have 900 dwelling units here and 200 hotel rooms. It's really going to have a couple of thousand people. That this is really where we want to see people walk, not drive to our commercial center, right? So as much as some of these parking things, it's really when people come to Spring Creek, really see them park your car. You know, we're the first ones to do that integrated street program with the bike paths and everything else. And we rebuilt our road into Spring Creek this year with the bike paths and all that. So we've added more bike parking than required by bylaw, I think over double, to really try and make sure people come to Spring Creek, park your car, walk, ride your bike, go to the grocery store, go to a coffee shop, whatever it is. You know, we're still so fortunate to be located close to downtown, but again, this is really, the heart of Spring Creek, and we wanted to make sure there's a good working building and a building that worked, but also a building that that integrated well into the overall community. So the variances that we feel we're asking for are, we probably wouldn't be asking for some of the other buildings, but it is a unique site. And because of that, we hope Planning Commission can support our proposal here.
Thank you, Mr. Koenig. Has any of the panel any questions for Mr. Koenig?
Could you just explain a little bit about the geothermal system? Does that provide all the heat for the buildings, the space heating? Or?
So I'm a mechanical engineer by background, so it's my little thing my little pet thing I've been doing since I started Spring Creek, and we're probably the only development in Alberta that does geothermal heating and cooling, and we're very fortunate we have a strong aquifer underneath Canmore, and we basically pull out the groundwater and re-inject it back in and take out 3-4 degrees delta T, so we use it for heating and cooling. Okay. It's free cooling, which is the beauty of it. There's no compression or anything needed except some full flow pumps for our cooling side, so it's very energy efficient on the cooling. On the heating side, we do have ground source heat pumps that do 100% of the slab and building heating. We generally augment boilers for our domestic hot water, but we can do some of the preheat because geothermal only goes up to 110 degrees, and your domestic water usually around 140, 150, so that boilers top that up to that temperature. But majority of it, if it's minus 20, we can do 100% of the building. If it hits to minus 30, 40, sometimes the builders might kick in just to supplement a little bit of the heat.
Is the cooling delivered through the slab, or is it forced air?
For fan coils. So we do slab heat throughout the building, and then just a fan coil unit that supplies the cooling to each of the units. Which, we're down in the bottom of the valley, the trains are there, and so it saves people having to open up their windows. It gives better sound as well, and the noise for people that they do have that cooling in the summertime, they don't have to open the window.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Koenig.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you use your microphone, please, for those who are live streaming?
Asking the panel, directing the panel and asking them a few questions regarding do we need to proceed to camera or anything like that, and they say no, so we will vote on it. All in favor?
I'll make a motion.
Do you make a motion? Do we need to second the motion? No? All in favor? There we go. Carried. Thank you so much. Okay. That concludes our business with this.
Item C on the agenda, the approval of the previous minutes of August 18th meeting, need to be approved. They were part of your agenda package.
Okay. I guess we have to have a motion to approve the August 18th minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Darlene makes the motion. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Now we're done. Thank you.
Can you make a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
All in favor?
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor? There we go.